Welcome to Reading the Bible Together in Genesis chapter 21, where God's promise to Abraham, 25 years in the making, is finally to be fulfilled. So great is the occasion that the Bible breaks into poetry to describe it. We lose a sense of that in the English, but the poetic Hebrew form of repetition comes across a little bit, even in translation. The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time at which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, whom Sarah bore him. Now, as instructed, Abraham gave the child the name Isaac, which means laughter, and circumcised him on the 8th day. Now, Abraham does well following instructions. It's when he comes up with ideas of his own that he gets into trouble, much like us. It's such a celebration that Sarah even gets the chance to sing. She says, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne him a son in his old age? God has brought me laughter, Isaac, and everyone who hears about this will Isaac with me." Indeed, the first years are happy, but then when Isaac is weaned, which would be around the age of 3, once again a problem arises. Ishmael, who's now about 16 years old, seems to be having a laugh, ironically, and Isaac at the youngster. And Sarah, prone to jealousy, hits the roof. She says to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Note that Sarah doesn't even use Hagar's name. Instead, she calls her that slave woman. Nor does she name Ishmael. She has reduced them to mere objects, a bad sign. Now, to Abraham's credit, for once he stands up to Sarah, not acting immediately upon her vengeful whim. Besides, he loves his son, Ishmael. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. Now, as far as Sarah's concerned, it's not Abraham's son, it's that slave woman's son. Get rid of that slave woman and her son for that slave woman's son. But Abraham, no, the matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. Abraham is still hoping for God's blessing on both his boys. Now, sensing Abraham's reluctance to act, God speaks. He says, "Do not be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your offspring." So, it is with heavy heart that Abraham sends Hagar away, the second separation from the family. The first time she ran away because of her ill treatment. This time she gets sent away. In the heat of the desert, her provisions soon run out, and she and Ishmael are near perishing. She has Ishmael rest under the shade of a bush and goes a short distance away. "I cannot watch him die," she says. Amplifying the sadness and poignancy of this, the text is kind of talking about Ishmael as though he's just a toddler, even though he's 16 or so. But Hagar is the one making all the decisions. She begins to sob, but it is Ishmael's tears God hears. And once again, as in chapter 16, he comes to Hagar's rescue. Once again, God promises a great nation from Ishmael, and we read, "Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink." Now, Hagar and Ishmael's story concludes in letting us know that God was with the boy and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt, same place Hagar was from. Now again, Muhammad, some 2,400 years later, hearing these stories from the Jewish traders that he dealt with, envisioned his own nation as descending from Ishmael, whom Muslims consider to be the true heir of Abraham. Now, not surprisingly, given the fact that Ishmael was an archer, archery was given great honor among Muhammad's military followers. But back to our story. Surprisingly, we find ourselves once again in the company of our old friend Abimelech, Still stinging from the stunt that Abraham pulled on him with Sarah, but recognizing God's blessing upon Abraham, Abimelech wants to make sure there are no hard feelings and that Abraham will not pull another fast one on him or his people. And so he says to Abraham, "Swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my offspring or with my posterity, but as I have dealt loyally with you, you will deal with me and with the land where you have resided as an alien." You know, there's several things in this short line. Abimelech is reminding Abraham that Abraham indeed has done falsely by him before, but he's not to do so in the future. "I got my eye on you, Abraham." After all, Abraham is living in the area as a resident alien under Abimelech's protection, and indeed Abraham swears it. "But now that we're talking," says Abraham, "some of your men have seized a well that I was using." Abimelech responds, "Well, that's news to me." What he actually says is a threefold excuse. I love the three ways he denies this. He should be running for political office. "I do not know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today." I'm really getting to like this Abimelech character. The Bible's really painting a picture of him for us. "I do not know who's done this. You didn't tell me. I haven't heard of it until today." Well, Abimelech agrees to clear the problem up, and now it's Abraham who gives to Abimelech as a change, as a sign of their agreement of mutual trust and protection. Abraham hands over some flocks and cattle. 7 ewe lambs are set aside as a special way of sealing the deal. And as a result, the well was named Beersheba, the well of 7, the name that it bears to this very day, some 3,800 or so years later. Beersheba is today a city of some 200,000 people smack in the middle of the Negev desert, due west of Gaza, which was Abimelech's stomping grounds. Now, Abraham planted a tree to mark the occasion, and he calls upon the name of the Lord, the eternal God, literally Yahweh El Olam. He'd remained in the area, we are told, in the land of the Philistines for a long time. Now, we haven't heard the last of Abimelech. He, or maybe his son by the same name. Remember, Abimelech is not really a name. It's a title, meaning son of the king or the king's son. But Abimelech will show up again in chapter 26, when we will have a very strong case of, here we go again. But there's a long way to go first. And the hardest part of that journey is coming up next in chapter 22, and we'll see you then.